I know this was going to happen to me when we started this series in the book of Acts. Because every time I go through the book of Acts, every time I read it, every time I look at that, and I see this special community, what that first church was, I've asked myself the question, why can't our churches be like that today? And it's not a very popular thing to say in a sermon on Sunday. Well, why can't you people be like those people? Well, some of you say, well, why can't you be a pastor like some of those pastors? I accept that. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. But I think we need to imitate that first church. I've been trying to imitate that church my entire time that I've been a pastor. It's been in the back of my mind. It's been in my head. And I sometimes say, we got a great church, but we're really so small, I want to tell you something here today. If you think about all the churches at the end of the first century that were in Egypt, that were in Samaria, that had gone up in Asia Minor, into Macedonia and were headed toward Greece, all of those churches, and you just do the math, and you figure out there were 1,000 Christians out there? How many people are in those churches? These were tiny, dinky churches. Do you realize that, you read in the Bible, the church at Ephesus, we must think that's a big, large church, right? Ephesus, Corinth, Philippi, the churches in Revelation, the 7 churches that Jesus has focused his attention on in heaven, walking around the lampstands in his heavenly presence. All those churches, many of them weren't any bigger than ours. They would look around and they say, we are so few. We are so few. But these churches have been the powerful places where the faith has been kept alive and where God has been working. And I think today very few churches are really pursuing that first church. Very few. I don't know if you kind of notice what's going on in our country today. A few years ago, we sort of passed a milestone. We moved from being a Christian nation to a nation that has some Christians in it, which means that the church has been shrinking, not only in size but in influence. And when we look at what's going on in our country today, does it surprise anybody? It's the Christian values. It's the churches and the message in the churches and the teachings about Jesus and how people's lives are changed. People who are broken, getting healing. People whose lives have been a mess and done all horrible things can change and begin to value and respect life and treat each other with respect and with honor. Where does that come from? It's not coming from any other quarters in our country today, right? I think if each and every one of us, I want to challenge you to do this, would study for the rest of this month 10 verses. The last 5 verses in Acts chapter 2 and the last 5 verses in Acts chapter 4. Those are the 2 verses that describe what was going on in the churches. Would you do that for me? Would you read those 10 verses? And let your heart ask you the obvious question, and that is, why can't we be a church like that? Why can't all churches be churches like that? You read those verses and it says that all the believers were one in heart and mind. Where do you know you can go anywhere and you can you can have people of the same mindset. We've been led to believe that our nation today is so divided that one mind and one heart can't exist, but the Holy Spirit makes the church a place where one heart can be a reality. It said they were devoted to Jesus, everything about Jesus. They were reading their Bibles, they were studying about it. They had become experts in their understanding. They knew how to tell people about what happened on the cross, about what happened in the resurrection. They devoted themselves to the fellowship, and that's everybody. They were devoted to each other, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, that's communion. They came up and they received bread and wine, the body, blood of Christ, together. And they understood that to receive God's forgiveness, I can't hold a grudge against anybody. How can you come to communion if you're still going to not like somebody or have this grudge against them? They devoted themselves to that honest interaction with Jesus Christ in the communion. They showed grace to one another. They were givers. The churches, when they found someone in need, they found a way to meet that need. They wouldn't go to bed at night if somebody was hurting or needed something. They lived like Jesus 24/7. And I want to tell you, when the diaspora went out and they started landing in different places in Samaria and Egypt and all, as they started going in those places, people looked at them and says, "My, you are different." Because these people who had been saved by Jesus Christ, these were people with a hope. These were people with a future. At the end of 100 AD, it's estimated that there was 1,000 Christians. What could 1,000 Christians do? Take a look at the next 150 years. There's nothing happening in your life that the Holy Spirit will not use the church and your Christian friends and your prayers to bring a blessing into your life. Because you are the church. You are the church. And God intends to bless you. I know that day when Stephen was killed and every one of those Christians had to skedaddle out of town, diaspora. They were thinking that was the darkest day in their life and they had lost everything. But you know, they had just been set free in a way they didn't understand. The first few centuries, as Christianity swept across the Roman Empire and people embraced Christianity because it made their lives better. It brought them hope. It brought them answers. It brought them help. It reconnected those communities that had been split apart by all sorts of wars and politics and all kinds of things. It pulled them together. And in this Christian movement, it pulled the world together and gave them a value foundation that has been alive in many nations and especially in ours for thousands of years. Do you think it's possible that God could use the church where we are right now in our culture to do these same things? He did it before. He can do it again. Think about it. Spirit of life. Why can't we? What about the other churches in our nation? Why can't they? Why can't, at this moment, churches be places that rise up with our message and our values and bring that to the hurting world we're living in? Why not? Cool day together, huh? Cool day. I'm so happy that you've all joined us today. I pray that this week might be a an inspiring time for you. And I pray that the Lord will bless you and give you a great week. And at this moment, why don't we just let the fellowship begin? God bless you and have a great week.